Hey everyone, and welcome to this Friday edition of FreightWaves Now. First up, Nick Austin with an update on Hurricane Dorian.
Good morning, everybody. I'm FreightWaves meteorologist Nick Austin here with FreightWaves CEO Craig Fuller, back for another update, a live update about Hurricane Dorian, where it's going, how much stronger is it going to get, and how it's already affecting the freight markets. So there's so much going on right now with the potential of this storm being a Category 3 or 4 when it hits Florida on Labor Day.
For sure. It has been a lot of activity over the last 24 hours. As you discussed just a couple of days ago, no one was ready to consider this a hurricane that could potentially make landfall.
Yeah.
I mean, it just sort of came out of nowhere. But I think it's a reflection of just how hot the oceans are right now.
The water is incredibly warm, and the storm has gotten stronger overnight. It's up to Category 2 now, almost at Category 3. It's got 110 mile an hour winds. All it needs is 111 to make it a Cat 3, which is considered a major hurricane. It's moving over open waters for a few more days before it reaches Florida. It's slowing down a little bit too, but that doesn't mean that it won't speed up a little bit more. So we're still looking at Labor Day, Monday afternoon, maybe Monday night, that it's probably going to hit the east coast of Florida. But it could be anywhere from, say, Miami up to around Cape Canaveral on the Space Coast. You know, we can't pinpoint the exact location yet or the exact intensity, but there's certainly potential for this to be a catastrophic storm.
And I've read that it could be Cat 4 by the time
it's very possible.
And if it does that, that is significant. What has Hurricane Andrew's been the last Cat 4 to hit the Florida coast?
It was devastating. That was in '92. I think there was another one in 2004 that was a major hurricane.
Okay, got it.
I don't remember the name offhand. I'll have to look that up. But it's been a while since a hurricane of that strength has hit the east coast of Florida, especially in September. Even though we are in peak season, most of the catastrophic storms in Florida occurred at other times of the season.
Yeah, and
usually in August.
And for freight, it's disruptive because it is a holiday weekend.
Yeah.
It is start of peak season for, right after Labor Day is where you start peak season, is really where it starts to build up. So it is disruptive. I think the Labor Day impact will impact people personally, but actually might be a saving grace for the freight markets because of the fact that there's just less activity.
Right.
And if you look at the path of the storm, really Florida is key. What we're hearing and talking to folks that are currently involved in FEMA relief is that places like Montgomery, Alabama are experiencing enormous amount of inbound activity coming from FEMA tasks. I talked to a couple of freight brokers yesterday that actually talked about freight coming as far as Tracy, California into Montgomery. So
it's amazing how something like this, it doesn't just affect the freight markets in the landfall state. It's everywhere else in a freight market.
Concentration. I mean, bottled water. And so bottled water is fairly easy to come by. They typically like to get it a little bit further away from the spot, which doesn't make sense, except there's always a theory by getting it a little bit further away, you don't have the issues if something happens that disrupts it. So they bring in water from all over. It actually some of it comes from Canada, which is sort of surprising. Okay. So you'll actually see that. Now, what will be interesting to watch is what does this all mean over the next couple of days? We're watching a number of indexes to actually see. Let's go on to the next chart and actually look at what's happening in terms of
we can skip through that. That's just a close-up of, unless you want to, this is a close-up of Florida, just showing the different, and this is all in sonar, what we call the spaghetti plots, the different forecast models.
You can actually see what's at risk. And we actually rank the risk scores related to what's potentially at risk. You can look right now. It looks like the Palm Beach Airport is the highest.
Code red right now.
The other thing that happened yesterday, and I don't know that it got enough coverage because it happened later after we were off the air, is that the FMCSA actually eliminated the hours of service rules for the states that are really involved heavily in logistics. And so that's on FreightWaves.com. You can read about the specific states. Keep in mind that if you're in those states, you don't have to adhere to the hours of service rules, or if you're involved in FEMA relief loads. So it's very important, but don't be caught in an area where the hours of service still adhere to if you're not hauling relief. That's pretty important. But it is interesting to sort of look at this because you mentioned how slow it is, because I think yesterday we actually had projected this coming in Monday night, and now it's looking like Tuesday to Wednesday. This is going to be a very slow-moving storm.
And the forecast is always evolving. You know, there are a lot of factors in play here, and we're still days away from a landfall. So that's why it's just so hard to really pinpoint exact location. I know a lot of people want to know where exactly is it going to hit, how strong is it really going to be. We can give a range.
Yeah.
But once it gets within, say, about 24 hours, I mean, you can certainly pinpoint it much, much better.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me of a basketball game where people are just throwing the ball back and forth.
Right,
and
right.
out where it
That's right.
sits. But it is interesting to watch and see how this all correlates. Let's go on to the next, I think it's the next chart. So actually what we're looking at here is the outbound tender volume index. And the reason I think this is really important is if we go over to this side, you can sort of see where we've been. About 320, it's actually shot up to 373. Yeah. And the OTVI, Nick, just so that everybody's aware, the OTVI measures volume in an index. So it's not actual number of loads.
Right.
It's what it is indexed to March 1st, 2018. So you can actually look at the history of volume. But I think this is really interesting because what we're seeing is significant surges in the market that are really related to what's happening over the last week. And the reason you're seeing significant surges is if you're a shipper, you're wanting to move a ton of volume out of the market, get it off your docks, move it so that you don't have that inventory next week where you may not be able to get capacity, you might be shut down, you may not have power. So what we're seeing is a lot of shippers pushing out tons of volume into the market, and they will do holiday surges right before Labor Day, before major holidays like Labor Day, but this is just an exponential surge that we had not seen that level in some time. So moving into the next chart, which I think we don't have.
That's okay.
But that's okay. We can talk a little bit.
Was it talking about inbound maybe?
Yeah, it was. We were looking at inbound volumes and just looking at places like where you're seeing a ton of inbound into Florida. We're seeing inbound rejections accelerate.
Right.
And the reason you're seeing inbound rejections accelerate is keep in mind that a lot of that FEMA freight is not electronically tendered. Most of that FEMA freight is moving over fax machines and confirmation sheets and emails. And so
people still use fax machines?
They do, believe it or not. We're in trucking. This is 2019, and I remember just a few months ago, there was a customer that was faxing something to me. There's a fax number on my card.
Wow.
I checked my fax machine, I'm like, forever. I don't even know the number. And but it still exists. I mean, in some of these trucking operations, particularly some of the larger guys, are still using fax machines.
Okay.
Now, there have been, and these are electronically faxed that come over. A lot of it's converted to email, but it's still confirmation sheets, and so they're not electronically tendered. So you actually won't see activity and tendering happen directly through the system. But what you do know is looking at the rejection volume, just how people are thinking about the market. We are seeing tender rejections increase into Florida, which is suggesting a couple of things. One is carriers are being much more discriminating on what discretionary freight will take. They're turning down loads from shippers, perhaps it's committed freight, but the reason they're turning it down is they don't want to get their drivers stuck over the holiday during a hurricane or during a storm. And so you see those tender rejections increase into Florida. That is what's caused it. And the other thing is that they're probably and likely allocating capacity to these hurricane projects. So if you have a committed load, maybe it's a load of books or something, or gardening equipment that you do on a normal basis, and then all of a sudden you take that freight and you say, I'm not going to allocate it right now. I need those drivers for FEMA. It's more important because it's disaster. I need to provide logistics because the people depend on it. And frankly, there's more money for the drivers. And so all of those factors are really driving a lot more activity into the spot market and into these FEMA transactions, which we would not see through electronic data. But by looking at how carriers are reacting to it, looking at tender transactions, we can actually see it.
And it makes sense that they don't want their drivers stuck there with freight. I mean, there's going to be power outages, trees down everywhere. They won't be able to get out.
Well, you don't want to drive. First of all, safety. I think trucking companies and trucking companies at times get a bad rep. But the reality is that it's one of the safest, in terms of the amount of miles, it's one of the safest industries on the road. Like if you think about it, these are professional drivers, and carriers spend an enormous amount of energy making sure that their drivers are safe.
Yeah.
And so they don't want to put them into
harm's way. They go through a lot of training and
they absolutely
and everything.
So they're not going to put them into harm's way. And the other thing is, even if the driver isn't going to be in a point of disruption, and what you'll see is places like South Georgia South Alabama that may not even be in the path of the storm will see significant rejections. And the reason is that carriers don't want their drivers on these congested highways or in areas that may not have power, even if there's no safety element to it. After the storm hits and there's no risk of the driver's health, you'll see what they'll do is they'll actually reject loads because docks may be shut down. They don't want to deal with the chaos of it when there's other things going on. What they will do is allocate it toward these FEMA loads, which actually are chaotic in themselves. And I'll say it again, we talked about what drivers should be doing and thinking about. If you are under dispatch, if you've never gone to a FEMA site, be prepared. We said it yesterday, I'm going to repeat it again.
You can't say it enough times, though.
No.
You really
Top
can't.
off your truck.
Yep.
Fill up that diesel, because at some point when that storm hits, power goes out. That means the pipelines potentially go out. That means that the service stations go out. They may not have diesel, so fill up your trucks. You may be there a while. Second is stock up on bottled water and food. Get it.
That's right.
Potentially a week or 2 weeks. You may be there for more than a week, so stock up with food and be prepared. Last, you're gonna be bored. This is a boring project. There is no place at the truck. You may not be at a truck stop. You may be at a military base. You may be at a church. You may be at a community center. You may be at a stadium. They're not ready for you, and they're not going to entertain you. So bring some form of entertainment that doesn't require the internet.
That's right. Books, board games, whatever.
I mean, you
Deck
have
of
a
cards.
generator in your truck.
Yeah.
And
electronics that don't require the internet.
Yes. So like, go buy the Madden NFL football. And if I were out there, I would buy the NCAA 2012 college football, because it is college football weekend, and you may not be able to watch it. A couple of things that we're also talking about is this weekend on Dogg Network at 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. On FreightWaves Radio, just channel 146 on XM Radio. We're actually going to be, John Kingston and I are going to be on the phone talking about FEMA. The entire show is dedicated to FEMA disaster relief.
Good,
We're going to dive into it and just talk about, we're also going to take calls. So if a driver's interested in asking questions about what to do, how to prepare, a fleet's interested in how to deal with these logistical elements, happy to talk through and dive that. We've got a bunch of experts that have dealt with FEMA and dealt with hurricanes that will be on the air. So that's the first thing. That's tomorrow at 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Sirius Dogg Network, channel 146. The second thing I wanted to point out is we have just opened up sonar for the next week. So through today and
Big
next Friday, anybody in the market involved in freight and logistics can get access. That's drivers, that's shippers, that's 3PLs, that's carriers. It's really everybody can get access to sonar for free for a week. And the reason we're doing that is we believe it's a really resourceful software package for these types of issues. We built it with that critical event element in mind, and a lot of it was informed of my own personal experience with FEMA. Having access to this data can help you make better decisions, understand what's happening on the ground, and better prepare your operation. So tune in, check out that. It's on the site, the description and the form on how to sign up for that.
Great stuff out there. And we got to wrap up, but we have to remind everyone, all the drivers out there, get paid for your detention.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the AT&T Business Carrier Update. So obviously today we're going to target the Florida market because Hurricane Dorian is bearing down on that this weekend. What I have pulled up behind me is the outbound tender market share map, which is going to show us the monthly change in outbound tender volumes. You can see that Florida is covered in Smurf turf, so basically all blue. And that's an indication that volumes are increasing coming out of Florida right now. And we think that this is a lot of repositioning of the freight in the area. A lot of it may be coming out, repositioning out of warehouses in front of this dangerous system. So if we look at some of these markets a little bit more deeply, I want to look at the Jacksonville market and show you just what some carrier behavior is happening here. So here in the white is the inbound tender rejection index. You can see here at the end, huge spike. Tender rejections going up for people going into the Jacksonville market. Outbound tender rejection index going down, something you would expect. People are not as willing to, they're not going to reject the loads coming out of the market because they're going to try to get out of it themselves. If we go and look at the Miami market, you're going to see this is outbound tender volume index, and you see over the last 3 days volumes have spiked. We're talking 20-30% increases in volumes coming out of that market. So we can expect a massive amount of outflux of volume coming over the next few days, especially over the weekend, and everybody needs to be careful out there because the hurricane is scheduled to hit about 8 a.m. on Tuesday morning. So be careful out there, carriers.
Improve your fleet's efficiency with AT&T Fleet Complete, a 4G solution for tracking vehicles and simplifying ELD compliance. AT&T Fleet Complete, delivering fleet solutions for every business.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel and follow us on all our social media outlets, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And everyone have a safe Labor Day weekend.